So today we got our earnings already out. Going to break it down for you. I got Landon with me. He's a very big part of the Lucid community on the Lucid Discord. Link is in the description below to that, so pop over to that. If you are replaying this, I'm going to have chapters at the bottom, but I'm going to break it down. Unfortunately, you can even see based on the live ticker at the very bottom, after hours activity isn't the best. Earnings so far isn't the best. We'll see what the conference call brings. But Landon, I appreciate you joining in.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Cool. But let's get right to it. So technically, I am usually very optimistic. Back-to-back cuts is not a good start. So in case you guys do not know as of right now, they did originally have 20,000 as far as the forecast for their 2022 production, cut it down to 12 to 14. Now they're cutting it to 6 to 7, which based on my rough calculation in my head, meaning Q3 and Q4, they have to do roughly about 37, 38 vehicles, somewhere in that range a day. And assuming no backlogs, no China issues in the future, and so we'll find out from the conference call, see if there is any supply chain issues that is restraining Lucid from doing that. If so, then potentially we'll see a little bit more of a downside. So what's your 2 cents on this so far?
I think that I'm not really sure. I think that they can improve and that we definitely need to see ramp up. But I think that bigger things are going to come whenever they start finishing up their buildings, AMP1, Part 2, AMP2 facility. I think once those are like in full swing, then we'll see a lot more. But in the meantime, I think we should gotta hold tight and hope for the best.
Yeah. I think generally the only good positive to take from this is earnings per share was better than expected. So that's a pretty good thing. Especially of all the costs associated with, because in Q2 they hired, they leased that Tempe facility lot, also leased one lot of plot of land connected to AMP, also purchased one plot of land connected to AMP, which most likely will be ESS related, possibly. So it's interesting to see that. Reservations numbers are also up from 37,000, previously was 30, so keep in mind though that does incorporate Europe. And also a nice little, should at least a bump up from Lucid offering leasing on their vehicles that happened in Q2. And keep in mind, tail end of Q1, they gave an ultimatum. You can rotate your actual reservation to an actual order, which I would have assumed would have increased the actual revenue, but we didn't even break, unfortunately, 100 mil for the overall revenue, only 97.3. So, yeah. I don't know. So do you think this is a good starting point, kind of us to lower? What's your initial, like, where do you see things going in the short term? Obviously, you can see the price going down, but...
Yeah, I think that Lucid actually coming out in Q2 and saying that they're going to reduce their numbers, I think that's actually a better play for them than to come back in like Q3 or Q4 and say, hey, sorry guys, we missed. I think that gives them the ability to actually stick to what they say, and that is under promise, over deliver. I think with the 6,000 to 7,000 cars, I feel like if we see a nice ramp up and pure delivery start happening in Q4, we can definitely probably hit maybe 8,000 or 9,000 cars, but that's just my opinion. I think that we can definitely make that bare minimum of 6,000, and I really hope we do. It just kind of depends on how they go about it. But I think they made the right move by declaring it now instead of holding off.
Yeah, that's fair to say. So a couple things that we'll have to really pay attention for is, well, I guess on a side note, obviously, if you guys haven't, I believe you can no, voting is done. My apologies. So August 2nd, these are the most voted questions that Lucid could ask. So ask about the Apple partnership. So I think a lot of us deep down really want to know that. Also, plans to ramp up production of vehicles. Any plans for an EV in the 40 to 50,000 range, which Peter did allude to. So hopefully they give a little bit more explanation. Is Lucid on track? So I don't think they'll ask that. They already kind of cut and killed our dreams with that, unfortunately. And I don't know. Here's a little bit more of a fun fact for a lot of investors who are actually here, because clearly 2.2 thousand votes on this, which 546,000 shares is basically represented by this. I don't think this question is valid, or it's way too early. As yes, it'd be nice for us to be equivalently like a forward in the future or something like that where we pay a dividend, but I don't think that's going to come until like 2024 or onward. I think we should save our votes for more a decent breakdown, because I was looking here, and why does nobody care about the reservation numbers? Like, I want to know personally, because I don't think that if someone asks, they're not going to openly tell us. Unfortunately, Lucid's very not really transparent, but I want to know of the reservations, because I did increase 7,000 from previous earnings. What is that of Europe? Is the Germany facility actually studio doing what they're intended? Like, how efficient is that? Is Lucid making the right decision, putting a lot of priority to Saudi Arabia and to Europe? Like, that's the info I want to know. I want to know initially, not necessarily dividends, but maybe I'm wrong, Landon. I don't know what's.
I mean, I actually think you're absolutely right on that one. I wish that they would do a geographical breakdown, especially like here in like the U.S. I wish that they would just kind of like tell us which studios are doing the best and which ones are kind of falling off. Not like as in like a bad thing, but just to see where like a lot of our buyers are, so that way we as investors can see, you know, where the hot spots are and where the studios that are being productive and making, you know, more reservations and getting more people into the brand are. And so we can kind of like track their progress and see how like stores increase their number of sales over the time, and see where markets are emerging, so that way we can kind of, well, Lucid as long as us, but get more data as to where the buyers are and where the buyers, you know, are coming to us from. And it'd also be nice for like other, you know, expansion too, to see how big of a reach we're having in Europe, how big of a reach we're having in the Middle East and in Canada and other places that we expand to in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I believe they started to ship to Canada, wasn't it June the 6th, something like that? So it would be interesting to know those facts. I'm very data driven, so I like to see what's happening behind the scenes, what the picture actually says and is representing. So having those heat maps, like you mentioned, like that is spot on. That is what we should request, not dividends. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments or the chat what you guys think about that. But we were actually starting to have a pretty good leg up on the technicals, with the exception of today. But you never know, right? If you want to stay optimistic, Lucid has come back from worse. So at least I think the key is Q3. That'll be a very, very, very important one. If they cannot do at least half of the, because right now it looks like we are at, what is it? Where exactly is it? 1,400, yeah, 1,405 vehicles for the first half, so 1 and 2, which isn't too bad for a first year, but we also see a lot of other first years doing a little bit more significant. So I don't know, like, I'm also a very strong believer in sentiment. As much as a lot of people like to say, you know what, at the end of the day, this is a long-term position, 2025 onwards, which I completely agree with. But I think to some degree, it doesn't matter whatever stock you guys are investing in, it needs to hold some short-term gains. It has to, or else the sentiment is gone. Opportunity cost kicks in. It's like, why would I be negative 20% on Lucid when I could invest in like anything, even just a SPY, and go up 5%? Like, it reduces the incentive for investors to get in. So I think we're getting to a little bit more of an interesting place where Lucid just plain and simple needs to produce and get their shit going. My own 2 cents. I'm not a financial advisor. Neither of us are.
Yeah, hey, is it okay if I jump in here real quick?
Yep, definitely.
All right, so in the short term, I think that an issue that some people have is they have too high of an average, and that's okay, you know, because that's kind of like that long-term outlook on it. But I mean, I think the best option is to dollar cost average and to buy more shares at lower prices to try to reduce your average cost. And then whenever, you know, like the price goes up and stuff, just kind of offload some shares that you maybe aren't too happy about. But I think positive sentiment is definitely a thing that needs to happen. And I think that we all need to keep a positive sentiment because there's a lot of good going for the company. I mean, it's our first year of production, and we're already like smashing through some barriers, having the best car, the fastest at Goodwood. I think that those are really good accomplishments that just kind of like fly under the radar just because our production isn't as at the number it should be.
Yeah, very well. So here's one question to you and to everyone in the chat. So going here is the list of questions. Obviously, the first one is about Apple partnership. Do you think if they actually say in this earnings, if there is going to be an Apple partnership, do you think that will be enough to save us and have us possibly green tomorrow?
You know, I actually think that if they do come out and say, yes, we are partnering with Apple, I feel like there's no doubt in my mind that we would be green. I think that that would probably be like a huge momentum swing for the stock in general, and that we could see a nice upwards trajectory. Now, realistically, I think that they say either no or we can't talk about that. And I think that that'll kind of like maybe shove us down a little bit more. But especially if they say no, then that'll probably shove us down a lot. But I think they'll say no comment and just kind of like stand at it and maybe say like, oh, we're open to partnerships and stuff in the future. But I think that if they come out and say yes, then that's going to be huge momentum swings for Lucid.
Yeah. But no matter what, I think whatever comes, this earnings, this conference call is going to be interesting. Again, I like to stay positive to some degree, but I'm just trying to think of what possibly they could have as a nice surprise that could incentivize investors and rejuvenate the sentiment away from the production cuts. And nobody wants to hear that. And I don't know, maybe if this is a precursor, because typically in the past what they do is they go through stats. They first talk on risks that Lucid was involved in, basically what they're expecting for the future, and then they go to analyst questions if there is any positive ones or anything in general. But as far as risks, I don't know, maybe if them cutting this amount of production, they went through 2 hiring sprees, and so far one of which was in Q2. Does that mean they're going to be laying off people? Like if they're cutting now 50% at least of their production, well, what's that equate to for layoffs? Because Rivian did 6%, Tesla did 10%. Obviously, Tesla was a little bit more voluntary, but what does that mean for Lucid? That could be something for us to keep in mind. Still, yeah. But what Bubba says, I think we're not going bankrupt. Definitely. So what's your take? Do you think there's going to be layoffs possibly?
You know, I think that layoffs are always possible, especially with the economic uncertainty that we have right now. I mean, you can call it a recession, call it not a recession, whatever side you want to stand on that one. But either way, you know, the economy's not doing too great, and I think that there could be some possible layoffs, maybe just to cut costs a little bit. And we could even see that they did lay people off because our earnings per share went up a little. And that could also be because they cut some people or, you know, reduced hours and stuff. And it could be the start of something that is to come. But I don't think that even if they do lay people off, I don't think that's a big deal as much as other factors. Because as long as we still have employees there who know what they're doing and can produce cars and do what they're supposed to and do their job very well, I don't think we have to worry about the number of employees right now. I think it's just a matter of how efficient they are at pumping out vehicles.
Smart thinking, yeah. Latest news as well that does looks like Lucid did appoint Stephen David as VP of Operations. So they're further moving management around. I believe 2 weeks ago they had appointed 2 new VPs for more so for expansion purposes. So it looks like they are changing up operations. So that's hopefully something. It's good to see that happen, right? Usually a company in the first year, they don't like to change and make that many movements as far as upper management, but Lucid seems to be all about that, right? So.
Yeah, hey, I want to jump in real quick because someone on YouTube just said that they were having a massive hiring fair, Bubba me. Yeah, I do, you know, I have heard that Lucid is having hiring fairs. And that could also be a good thing. That could kind of like be a dark horse in the closet that Lucid could come out with and say, hey, you know, we're actually not going to lay people off. We're actually gathering more people. And so I think that that's kind of like one of those catalysts that it's not like a huge catalyst, but it's enough of a catalyst that it could be good for the stock and the sentiment of it.
Yeah. Well said. And Bubba, I believe it was on the 31st, July 31st. That was for 𝗪𝗚, or 𝗪𝗚. I say that wrong every time, but you guys get what I'm saying. It's for that location, not for AMP or anything like that. The previous hiring sprees were for the AMP facility. But still, you know what? One question they should have asked as well, or what we should find out, is the 2 plots of land that's attached to AMP. In the Q1 earnings, in the actual transcript, they talk on the second prototype of the ESS. That is what they should be asking. Is nobody asking those questions? Like, why are you expanding 2 plots of land connected to AMP? Like, why? What's all this going on? I don't know.
Yeah, I like your thoughts on that. I mean, those are important questions that we should be asking too. I didn't see any on there about breaking ground in Saudi Arabia, how the build's going in Saudi Arabia, any new studios in Saudi Arabia. There's not like a whole bunch of questions on like expansion and why they're doing the things that they're doing. Like, why are they buying the land in Tempe, Arizona? Why are they buying the land next to AMP1? Are they planning on buying land next to AMP2? Like, there's none of those questions that like go on to expansion and stuff. I think that we could get better quality questions, and that we as a community should work towards getting better quality questions answered and into the questionnaire.
Yeah, but I think just vaguely looking over here, a lot of people just either care about a partnership, B, we're on track to meet our production goals to some degree, and like C, they want a lower price vehicle. That's basically plain and simple. Or one random people want dividends, but for the most part, it's just those.
Yeah, hey, on that partnership thing, I don't think that a partnership will make or break Lucid. I think partnerships will definitely add value, but I think that Lucid is going to be more value than any of the partners it adds, maybe except for Apple. Apple might be the anomaly. But even then, I don't think that Apple's one of those ones that, it's like, oh yeah, that's really going to happen. I think it's kind of like one of those dream things that could happen. But even then, like, any partnership will be great for it. And I think that any and as many partnerships as we can get is great for it. We already have NVIDIA. They're partnering with us in 2026. I think that's fantastic and great. We have Dolby Atmos for sound. I think that that's awesome as well. I think the more partnerships we get, not just who we get, but the more we get will be more beneficial for us. And I think Lucid will carry the majority of the value in those partnerships. What do you think?
No, yeah, I think, well, the thing with investors, right, everyone's very short-term minded, and doesn't matter about the massive catalyst that happened last week. They want to know what's the next big thing. And I think that's the unfortunate truth. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. How you see things. I think for those long-term investors, they just plain and simple want to know what the long-term goal is, right? Versus, and like they're a little bit more comfortable with that, versus someone who maybe is possibly over leveraged, or either whatever the reasoning is. This just after hours is going to give them a ton of anxiety, and investment shouldn't do that. If you ever feel like that, that means either one of the things: either you're over invested, don't trust your due diligence, or something along those lines. And there's about 10 minutes left before the earnings call. Just going to give you a quick summary of short interest. So despite us being up during the actual market hours, shorts added 106,000 shares. Cost to borrow max went up through the roof, so 425%. So clearly there was a broker out there anticipating that there was going to be maybe a little bit more of a squeeze as a result from the earnings, but fortunately, that wasn't necessarily the case. So in case you as well, give you one quick recap as well, just in case you guys are just joining now. They cut from 12 to 14,000 to now 6 to 7,000 vehicles for the 2022 production. As far as revenue, a little bit lower than expected. So 97.3 million. They did actually deliver 679 vehicles. As far as actual reservations, that went up 37,000. So hopefully that'll be good to see, or hopefully they explain what percentage of that increase, the 7,000 increase, came from Europe. Because I've always, based on all the charts that we have, there's a huge demand for EV in Europe and China. So us eventually going to those markets, we want to know, is it actually worthwhile? Like, so far as of right now, the States has been the surprising X factor out of all of this, which goes to show that the studios are actually doing what they're intended, which Landon, what you said about having a heat map where what studios are doing good, like that would be brilliant. That's smart.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the questions that we can ask in the Q3 earnings, is if they can provide something like that, or just get something like that started, because it's never really too late to get started, because we're in our first year of production. So, I mean, going into year 2, might as well start now, so that way it might be beneficial to the investors and to the company. So that's definitely a great question to ask for next earnings.
Let's see. See, despite us kind of getting the results we did, I think everyone in the chat so far seems pretty optimistic. I think for the most part, everyone here is long-term Lucid fans and part of the broader community. So I think we all know what we got ourselves into initially, because it's not going to become Tesla overnight, right? Tesla had its hiccups first thing initially as well, and so will we, and I'm pretty sure this won't be our last hiccup either. So we just have to continue to show signs of improvement. I think that's kind of a good takeaway that you want to always focus on.
Yeah, I think so too. And the high expectation for us to be the Tesla competitor, I think that kind of gets a little lost in translation, because I don't think that personally Lucid is a Tesla competitor. I personally think that Lucid is actually way better than Tesla, just because we have a lot more going for us, and we have the ESS coming out. I know that Tesla has a similar product, but I think that Lucid can like really knock it out of the park, because we have a better car, we have better technology, and we can develop ESS better than they can. And we can also lease and partner with other companies. I know that there have been several times where Tesla's either almost gone bankrupt and had other people bid on them. But I think that Lucid, with its partnerships, can really knock it out of the park and be better than Tesla, not just compete with them.
Yep. I think most of us agree to that, hopefully. And just so you guys know, because I like to read between the lines and what's happening, there was a huge order on Lucid. This is on the dark pool. So keep in mind, when a dark pool doesn't really dictate or follow what the secondary market is happening on. I don't know if you guys can see this yet, but $2.47 million order was purchased at $20.56. So keep in mind, that's a pretty substantial jump of where we were. So maybe that's a short closing out their position or whatever it might be, but like they paid a hell of a ton of money over market. And technically even outside of that though, because you can see the live ticker at the very bottom, we're 1860, low 18s. Look at these transactions, $20.56, $18.75, $18.60, all well over the actual market price. So clearly institutions might know something down the line. Who knows? Again, we have 6 more minutes until we find out our fate. Hopefully, I think things might be good though.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you bring up, the fact that institutions are willing to pay way over the supposed asking price. I think that that's actually telling of something. Maybe there's a little bit more downside to it, but I think that institutions are also seeing the potential that a lot of us see as long-term investors in the stock and the amount of gains that we can get from it.
𝗖𝗓𝗓, do you think that we'll get more information about the energy storage system? To be honest, I would love that information. Whether they actually outright do it or say it, I don't know, because I think they've been working on this for a while now, but in Q4 they did not even bring that up, and the only reason why they brought that up in Q1 is because that was one of the top voted questions, so they kind of were forced to elaborate on that. That's the only reason why we have information. That's why I look on the transcripts, and that's why we know information, right? If that wasn't a top question, they probably wouldn't have brought that up. So based on if that is the same assumption, most likely they're not going to bring it up. It will be nice, but it's not. Doesn't seem like anyone who posed any questions cares about ESS or the storage system. So most likely, no question. Could be wrong though. But I agree with most. I think they have to say something positive, something like I can think of a ton of negative things that could go down in 5 minutes. But I think we need something. Investors need something to think of, and there's nothing investors hate more than no news. Which technically outside of this, we have a couple catalysts coming next week. Obviously, the 13 Fs of our big players, so Franklin and the PIF. But outside of that, though, we have no known news. So investors will have to be left to their own minds, if you want to call it that. Here's a good question for you, Landon.
Yeah, what's up?
Are you buying right now? Would you be buying at this level?
Actually, that's a great question because I actually did buy a couple of shares at the $18 price level. I'm probably going to wait a little bit and buy whenever it drops a little lower if it does. But if not, I don't mind buying anywhere from 16 to 20. I think that that's a great price range to get in at and to add to your position with.
Yeah, fair. I want to listen to what their conference call says first. Yeah, I think generally that would be my next step. I want to see what they come out of that. But no matter what, I did make roughly about a month ago a whole different YouTube portfolio just dedicated to one of which was just Lucid. So regardless if I want to or not, I'm buying it every week just to be a good advocate of dollar cost average. I don't know if that might be the dumbest mistake in my life or the best. We'll find out in 2024 and onwards.
I think it'll be the best. Hey, I just want to real quick touch on this. Barry L in chat, he says that the reduced numbers really should have been expected. The next earnings should give insight to 2024. I think that's a really good question. Well, a really good statement there. I think that yes, the Q3 earnings will give insight into next year and even into 2024. I'm just kind of curious if they will revise their numbers for the future, if they're going to bring those down or if they're going to stick with the ones that they do have. I'm kind of curious how that's going to affect everything too, because I feel like they'll bring it up in Q3, maybe Q4, but I wonder what kind of effect that'll have on the stock. That's just forward looking on my part.
Yeah, because I'm surprised they actually haven't cut next year's output at all, which technically is supposed to be 42,000. So
yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do about that one.
Okay, so 2 minutes, and then we'll. So just a quick summary. We're gonna stay quiet during the actual call. You guys don't need to hear us or anything like that. Just we'll pay attention to Peter, Sherry, and the team, and then at that stage, we're gonna chime back in, give our 2 cents on what is coming from that. Johnny, you are saying that exactly right. I think that's one of the key things of investing. Never invest any money that you're not willing to lose. But hopefully we don't break below the 18 during the market. Again, you know, guys, how I like to stay positive through all of this. One positive, look at the volume at the very bottom. We're actually above our average for once. Which technically, I think Landon was bringing up that of the Lucid curse that we can't do 5 consecutive green days. Maybe that's playing into the fact of all of this. Because today it was our 4th green day. Or was it today our 5th green day?
From what Mr. Pike said, it's our 4th green day, from the information that I do have.
Okay.
But I'm really hoping for that 5th green day so that way we can break through and start a new trend and get an upward trajectory. I think that that'll be great. for momentum and for the stock in general, and for all the people who are invested currently to kind of get a glimpse of the higher prices again.
Okay. Still nothing. Nope. Oh. Alright. Couple more seconds, guys, then we'll... Gotta love silence. Let us know your predictions on what might come from the earnings as well, though. From the conference call, we'll see what positives might come from that. Yeah, a riff. Yeah, pretty bad revisions, to be fully fair. Come on, Lucid. Still just the music playing.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to 𝗪𝗓𝗓. Thanks, 𝗪𝗓𝗓. I like you. Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, Lando. He has all the Lucid merch in the back, guys, as well. I don't know if you guys could see. Got a share certificate. You got all that fun stuff. And, oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, luckily enough, I was able to take a trip down to the Miami studio and pick up a lot of good stuff.
Nice.
They have a lot of nice stuff too, a lot of high quality stuff.
Oh, there we go.
Kind of hard to see.
Two minutes delayed. Well, let's see what people are saying. Oh, thanks, Todd. Appreciate that. Derek, if it does hit 16, that'll be good buying opportunity. I personally would feel anywhere from the 15, 16 might be a good buying range. But usually what happens is if I'm thinking about it that way, then it never hits that, because then everyone usually buys above that. Yeah, exactly what PLLC said. Honestly, I wouldn't think about selling at this stage.
Hey, Mike Lee, your question. Yes, Lucid is offering test drives at studio facilities. I'm not sure which ones allow you to just walk in and test drive, but I'm pretty sure if you make an appointment, some of them will actually let you test drive without having a reservation. But if you do have a reservation, you can definitely get a test drive.
Gilda, call is starting now. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Thank you, and welcome to Lucid Group's second quarter 2022 earnings call. Joining me today are Peter Rawlinson, our CEO and CTO, and 𝗪𝗓𝗧𝗛, our CFO. Before handing the call over to Peter, let me remind you that some of the statements on this call, particularly those regarding the future financial performance of the company, production and delivery volumes, macroeconomic and industry trends, company initiatives, and other future events are based on the information that we have as of today and include forward-looking statements within the meaning of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Forward-looking statements are subject to numerous risks, uncertainties, and other factors that could cause actual results to differ from expectations, and we refer you to the cautionary language and the risk factors in our quarterly report on Form 10-Q for the quarter ended June 30th, 2022, as well as other documents filed or to be filed with the SEC for a fuller discussion of such risks, uncertainties, and other factors. Forward-looking statements made during today's call speak only as of the time they are made, and we are under no obligation and expressly disclaim any obligation to update, alter, or otherwise revise any forward-looking statements, whether as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise except as required by law. You are cautioned not to place undue reliance on these forward-looking statements. In addition, management will make reference to non-GAAP financial measures during this call. A discussion of why we use non-GAAP financial measures and information regarding reconciliation of our GAAP versus non-GAAP results is available in our earnings press release issued earlier this afternoon, as well as in the investor deck available on the investor relations section of our website at ir.lucidmotors.com. With that, I'd like to turn the call over to Lucid CEO and CTO, Peter Rawlinson. Peter, please go ahead.
Thank you, Maynard. In Q2, we continued to see strong customer demand for our vehicles, with over 37,000 customer reservations as of today. That's an increase of more than 7,000 in the quarter, up from the 30,000 reservations as we reported last quarter. Now, this 37,000 figure does not include our agreement with the government to purchase up to 100,000 vehicles, which is entirely incremental. Nor indeed does it include potential reservations for our forthcoming SUV, the Project Gravity, nor even potential reservations for Lucid Air in markets outside of North America, Middle East, and Europe. As such, we're very pleased with the reaction from customers and the excitement surrounding Lucid Air, and we believe that as we get more of our vehicles into our customers' hands and expand our test drive program, that our momentum will just continue to build. We're also pleased to report that Lucid Air continues to garner many industry accolades, besting some very well-established luxury car brands. Now, for example, we debuted the 1,050 horsepower Lucid Air Grand Touring Performance in June at the Goodwood Festival of Speed in the UK, which features some of the world's fastest vehicles. Well, the Lucid Air Grand Touring Performance recorded a Goodwood hill time climb of 50.79 seconds in the shootout. And that's the fastest time of any production road car at the event. And the 12th fastest time overall, which included many racing cars. Now, to be clear, only racing cars were faster at the event, and many of the racing cars were not as fast. Now, this demonstrable performance advantage lies in Lucid's in-house EV powertrain technology. Lucid designs, develops, and manufactures all our core EV technology in-house. This vertical integration differentiates Lucid from virtually every other car manufacturer today. However, with all that positive momentum, I do have to say that this quarter has proven to be a very challenging period. And whilst we have experienced supply chain and logistics challenges along with the entire industry, the limitations of our logistics system have compounded the challenge. And although we continue to face supply chain constraints, the resolution of some earlier gating component supply issues allowed us to push toward increasing the production rate. And as we attempted to push forward the rate, we found that our logistics constraints prevented us from scaling meaningfully this past quarter. For example, our ability to feed the correct part to the line at the correct time and cadence, where each car is built with thousands of parts, and do this whilst maintaining a high Lucid quality build standards. So with that, let me walk you through our first half and Q2 production and delivery figures to provide a little context. In the first half of 2022, we produced 1,405 vehicles. These were factory-gated vehicles, and this means that they're completed and ready for delivery to customers. But in Q2, we also made a significant number of vehicles that we did not factory-gate, instead electing to hold them back in order to ensure that these cars met the highest standard of quality. Remember, quality must take a priority over volume as a luxury brand, and I'll touch on quality a little bit later. Now, from a production standpoint, we have both planned and unplanned pauses in the quarter that resulted in approximately 2.5 weeks where we had no daily production at the factory, in addition to pauses of a more transient nature related to supply chain and logistics issues. A production pause due to installation of body shell assembly equipment and robotics for the Lucid Air Pure was pre-planned. The equipment has been successfully installed, and we're on track for the start of Pure before the end of the year, which we expect to be hugely significant for us as a company. At the same time, we did also experience some unplanned production pauses, primarily in order to improve our logistics processes, which, as I stated earlier, became more apparent as we started to scale. So, as a result, we are reducing our 2022 production guidance to a range of 6,000 to 7,000 vehicles. Our revised outlook guidance for the year reflects the logistic challenges I described as we began scaling, which exposed the immaturity of our logistics processes. But I do believe that we've identified the primary bottlenecks and have already taken steps to begin to remedy the situation. We have made the significant decision to bring our logistics operations in-house. We've made key hires to the executive team, and we've restructured our logistics and manufacturing organizations accordingly. We accelerated access to our logistics center as part of our phase 2 expansion in Arizona, and within a couple of months, we expect to have our logistics center on site at AMP1, which should help mitigate and begin to eliminate the logistics bottlenecks, as well as reduce costs of the shipping and handling of parts. Furthermore, we're overhauling our logistics processes and introducing a series of improvements to simplify the system and yet make it more efficient and robust. I'm pleased to announce that Stephen David has joined Lucid as Senior Vice President of Operations. Stephen will report to me and will be based in Arizona at the center of our critical manufacturing and logistics operations. In this newly created role, Stephen will lead global operations, including oversight for the expansion of AMP1, as well as future operational centers. The business leaders of supply chain, logistics, manufacturing, and quality will now report directly to Stephen, ensuring we execute in tight alignment across these business units. Stephen's wealth of experience in manufacturing and operations will be a tremendous asset to Lucid. Most recently, he was head of component operations at Stellantis, responsible for business operations, including P&L, for 2 companies within the organization. And before that, Stephen served in a variety of leadership positions at Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, including Vice President of Manufacturing and Engineering Manufacturing for Asia Pacific. Stephen has expansive and in-depth experience in the automotive arena. I'm also delighted to welcome Walter Ludwig, Vice President of Global Logistics, to our executive team, who will be reporting to Stephen. Walter brings over 28 years of automotive experience and joins us from Mercedes-Benz, where he held various roles, including head of operations, head of quality, and most recently, head of central logistics. For the last 20 years, his main management focus has been ramping up and stabilizing the manufacturing plants in Germany, China, Russia, Argentina, and the United States. Walter provides operational leadership in developing and implementing best practices in automotive logistics and parts management, material planning, as well as other areas. Now, moving on to the deliveries. Last quarter, I highlighted that we delivered well over 300 vehicles in the month of April. In Q2, we delivered 679 vehicles to customers. Our decision to prioritize quality had an effect on our deliveries, and quality is an organizational priority. I've been working with the team to make sure that nothing leaves our house without meeting our high standards. Now, in fact, I'm joining today's Q2 earnings conference call directly from our AMP1 factory right here in Arizona. I'm right here on the front line. And I've been spending the vast majority of my time here, right here on the shop floor, as I believe it's my responsibility as the CEO to be here resolving issues and helping to onboard the new executives. Indeed, I feel particularly at home on and around the production line, where I am personally and directly engaged in helping solve problems. It is right here that I witnessed the passion and the camaraderie of the Lucid employees in the factory firsthand, and particularly our much valued associates who are so engaged in this process. And this is very real. They are so engaged because, just like me, they really want to build the world's best cars, and just like me, we want to do that in volume. And believe me, we're working tirelessly to make that happen. And so I'd like to personally thank all of our employees for their sheer dedication and for working alongside me, shoulder to shoulder, right here in the factory. Now, we've also made enhancements to our quality processes that are yielding improvements. The quality of the cars that we're factory gating now are excellent. And we're working to make sure that this excellence in quality is consistent at scale off the line. Again, quality simply must take priority over volume as we establish our brand reputation. In the quarter, we aligned manufacturing quality and field quality under Nick Mimbiol, our Vice President of Global Quality, and that is already yielding improvements. We also brought in Sunhai Moon as Global Head of Supplier Quality. Sunhai joins us from LG Electronics Vehicle Component Solutions Company, where she was the Vice President of Field Quality and of Customer Support, responsible for leading all aspects of field quality performance, customer support, and aftermarket for products. Prior to LG, Sunhai served as Powertrain Quality Director for General Motors International Operations in Asia. Now they, along with the team, have already identified areas for further improvement. and implementation has been underway, and these, combined with existing planned process improvements, give me confidence in our ability to ramp significant production volumes. On a positive note, our ability to produce cars has not been limited by our ability to manufacture our electric powertrain. And this advanced technology, which truly differentiates us, is manufactured in-house by attendantly advanced processes. And these are largely all going pretty well. And when you consider just how advanced these systems are, this part of the story is really quite an achievement. And from a product perspective, as I noted earlier, we've already started deliveries of the 1,050 horsepower Grand Touring Performance. And we're on track for additional version of the Lucid Air for later this year, followed by the start of Project Gravity SUV production in the first half of 2024. We also expect to ship the very first Lucid Airs into Europe and Saudi Arabia by year end. So we see a lot of opportunity ahead of us. Now, I also want to provide an update on our Formula E relationship as we approach the completion of 4 successful seasons supplying the standard battery pack to the series. I am proud to say that we have had a 100% safety record to date, with just 2 races remaining in this, the final series season for the Generation 2 race cars. With the advent of the all-new Generation 3 Formula E race cars for next season, Lucid is proud to announce that we will be the sole provider of front drive units for the series. This brand new Lucid front drive unit has been custom developed to provide ultra-high performance with gravimetric and volumetric power density. These drive units are capable of 469 horsepower, yet remarkably are approximately half the weight of the Lucid Air drive units. They're positioned in the nose of the electric race car in front of the driver's feet, with drive shaft connecting out to the front wheels. Make no mistake, this is impressive, next-level technology. And just as our learnings from our racing battery program provided technological transfer into our road car, the Lucid Air, I think that this brand new Lucid high-tech racing drive unit is probably a good pointer to a potentially smaller yet powerful road car drive unit in our future. As far as I'm aware, we are one of only 2 OEMs or car companies that are vertically integrated through the design, development, and manufacturing of our own technology. And I'm confident that as this technology race plays out, Lucid will continue to stand out. And we continue to garner strong industry accolades driven by our technology and our design. In Q2, we won the 2022 Awards 10 Best Interiors and UX. This award validates one of the founding principles of Lucid Air, which is the Lucid Space concept. In fact, I recently filmed a Lucid Tech Talk on the space concept, whilst Chief Engineer 𝗖𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗖𝗧 presented our latest Tech Talk on the Wunderbox bidirectional charger, which you can find on our investor relations website. The software team continues to work hard, with 19 over-the-air updates delivered since the beginning of the year. We added a number of features, including an enhancement to Lucid Air's ability to identify traffic signs and inform the driver of speed limit changes and other important road information, a major upgrade to navigation, as well as other customer-requested features. And we'll have a major software upgrade coming later this year. Now, although I'm delighted by the strength of demand we see for our cars and the ovations it received, I am conspicuously aware that the true value of having what is now widely recognized as a truly exceptional car can only be achieved by producing it in a meaningful volume. And that is why my laser focus, and indeed that of our Lucid team, is right here in Arizona, unlocking the path to our volume ramp up. Make no mistake, although frustrating, this is a phase of our growth as a company that we will power through. And that one we will power through with a steely determination. We have the product, we've augmented our workforce, and we're improving our processes to enable this to happen. Now, furthermore, as we increase the number of vehicles on the road, I believe we will see further demand growth as the awareness of Lucid Air and of the Lucid brand proliferates. I'm also excited about the potential reservation demand for Project Gravity SUV, which we are now considering just how to debut and when precisely to open reservations. Longer term, in order to have a more meaningful impact on the climate, we recognize that we need to be in the more affordable, higher volume segments of the market. And we will be doing just that with our mid-sized vehicle platform around mid-decade, which I believe will further demonstrate the value of our efficiency through our in-house EV technology. In short, I remain very excited about our future and the broad roadmap ahead. Whilst right now we're taking steps to resolve our current constraints, at the same time, we're driving forward with a sense of urgency to get our incredible vehicles to market. And indeed, on that note, I'm very hopeful you will see the fruits of these labors in the coming months and quarters. And with that, let me turn it over to Sherry for an update on our financials and an additional perspective on our business. Sherry.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you to all those who are taking the time to join us today. I want to echo Peter's excitement about our future product and technology roadmap and customer demand. We remain incredibly excited to bring new versions of the Lucid Air to customers this year. And to put the reservation number of over 37,000 in context, this represents potential future revenue of approximately $3.5 billion. And that's before including the up to 100,000 vehicle deal with Saudi Arabia and the future reservations for the Gravity, since we've not yet opened the order books for our upcoming SUV. Our future reservations, taken together with our growing customer base, brand awareness, and number of industry accolades, gives us the conviction to continue to invest in the rapid expansion of our business. Turning to our second quarter financial results, our second quarter revenue was $97.3 million, which represented a quarter-over-quarter increase of 69%. This included $96.1 million in automotive revenue from the delivery of 679 vehicles. We also recorded other revenue of approximately $1.2 million, which includes sales to Formula E. As Peter mentioned, the Formula E drivetrain agreement is the natural next step in our relationship, and it's a true testament to our advanced technology differentiation. Cost of revenue was $292.3 million. Similar to last quarter, this expected increase was primarily related to personnel and overhead costs as we ramp up production, offset by lower freight costs quarter over quarter due to our ability to shift a vast majority of our international shipments from air to ocean freight. We recorded an impairment charge of $81.7 million in the second quarter, primarily as a result of these increased costs being capitalized into inventory. This is fairly typical in initial production ramps, and just as we saw a decline from Q1 to Q2 in this impairment charge, we expect that the impact should lessen over time as we ramp up production volumes toward our planned manufacturing capacity. Moving to operating expenses. We're still in the growth stages of our company and investing behind our strategic priorities. But I want to be clear that we're doing this in a prudent and methodical manner. We're instilling a culture of cost consciousness, and we're working with our talented team members across the company to identify and execute on cost efficiency opportunities. To illustrate this point, I'd like to add on to Peter's earlier comments around the importance of quality. Getting quality right and getting it right early on in the factory helps to reduce downstream costs and improve throughput. So in addition to building the brand and customer loyalty, there's also tangible financial benefits to our quality-first approach. Now turning to research and development, R&D expense totaled $200.4 million. The 7.7% increase sequentially was primarily related to prototype material, engineering, design and testing services, offset partially by lower stock-based compensation expense. SG&A expense was $163.8 million, down 26.6% from the first quarter, primarily due to lower stock-based compensation expense. In Q2, we added 5 new studios for a total of 29 studios and service centers across the U.S., Canada, and Europe. We're proud to have added new studio locations in Boston, Massachusetts, Manhasset, New York, Denver, Colorado, Seattle, Washington, and our first European studio in Munich, Germany. And we'll continue to strategically open new locations globally as we scale the business and grow our presence. We're also increasing our fleet of mobile vans and have a total of 29 in North America as of quarter end. Our mobile service vans can perform over 80% of the service procedures that can be done in a service center, and is an important element in ensuring high customer satisfaction and a lower cost approach to providing service as the fleet of Lucid vehicles grows. Stock-based compensation in the quarter was $94.4 million. $10.4 million was in cost of revenue, $39.2 million was in research and development, and $44.8 million was in SG&A. In other income, we recognized a non-cash gain of approximately $335 million related to the mark-to-market value of private warrants. The value of the warrants can be influenced quarter to quarter by a number of factors, including Lucid Group's end-of-quarter share price. Now moving to the balance sheet. We ended the quarter with $4.6 billion in cash equivalents, and investments, which we expect will fund us well into 2023. During the quarter, we also announced a new ABL, asset-based loan credit facility, with initial committed capital of up to $1 billion, and the availability is based on the value of certain eligible assets. The terms also provide for incremental revolving commitments of up to an additional $500 million, subject to obtaining lender commitments. We had no outstanding borrowings under the ABL credit facility in Q2. The importance of this facility is that it provides Lucid with incremental liquidity and demonstrates a vote of confidence from a world-class syndicate of global banks, many of which have been with us through multiple transactions as we scale our business. I'd also highlight that this is a typical part of the capital structure of mature businesses and reflects the further development of Lucid as a growing global company. In Q2, we activated a working capital loan under the Gulf International Bank Facility Agreement in the amount of approximately $6.7 million related to early work to build our factory in Saudi Arabia. We have approximately $86.6 million currently available under the working capital facility, and an additional $173.2 million under a bridge facility. As demonstrated through this series of actions, we are committed to working proactively and opportunistically to ensure that our balance sheet remains an area of company strength. In Q2, we continue to invest in our technology platform, the scaling of our global business, and the manufacturing infrastructure build-out. Capital expenditures related to these activities were $309.8 million in the second quarter. As you can see from the photos we shared in our Q2 earnings presentation, our Phase 2 expansion at our Casa Grande, Arizona factory is progressing. When complete, we expect our installed capacity to increase to 90,000 units per year by early 2023. As we exit mid-decade, we expect to reach an annual installed capacity of 350,000 units in Arizona and 150,000 annual units of installed capacity in Saudi Arabia. And that gets you to an annual installed capacity of 500,000 shortly after mid-decade. In Q2, we announced our initial launch plans into the European market with the Lucid Air Dream Edition R, which is optimized for an estimated 900 kilometers of range, and the Dream Edition T, which features 1,111 horsepower. We have not yet begun to accept orders in Europe, but we did reach out to our existing reservation holders to gauge interest in Dream Edition, and we immediately saw strong demand. Moving to some of the other major milestones in the quarter. We launched Lucid Financial Services in June, an all-new digital platform offering a flexible, fast, and transparent financing process. Many Lucid Air customers have been asking for flexible financing options with a preference for a 100% digital experience, and we've delivered on that ask. Loan products are available to U.S. customers in all 50 states and leased products in 38 states and growing through a seamless process designed specifically for Lucid customers. We believe this helps open up the market as it's estimated that over 65% of OEM customers seek out loan or lease financing. This also enables us to continue to build direct relationships with our customers throughout their ownership journey. Now, it's highly unusual for an auto company to roll out this type of service as early in the growth cycles as truly amazing and great work by the team. Another proud milestone in the quarter was our addition to the Russell 1000 index. Russell indices are widely used by investment managers and institutional investors for index funds and as benchmarks for active investment strategies. Our inclusion in the Russell 1000 index is another significant milestone for Lucid and should help broaden our awareness in the institutional investment community. Now, turning to the outlook. Peter outlined some of the supply chain and logistics challenges, as well as the actions we're taking to address the near-term production bottlenecks we're experiencing. Bringing our logistics operations entirely in-house and accelerating access to our logistics center on-site at our Arizona factory will help reduce complexity, cut down lead times, and reduce various costs. We believe these decisive actions, as well as the addition of leadership across logistics, process transformation, and supplier quality will help us unlock these bottlenecks. However, it's unlikely we'll be able to make up the anticipated lost volume in 2022. Consequently, we are adjusting our 2022 production guidance to 6,000 to 7,000 units from 12,000 to 14,000 units. Now, turning to our cash guidance, we ended the quarter with $4.6 billion in cash equivalents, and investments, which we continue to believe is sufficient liquidity to fund us well into 2023. This assumes we are investing fully in accordance with our forward plan. As a reminder, we also have the KSA debt facilities and the ABL with significant untapped capacity. I'm also confident we will have options for additional funding as needed, and our strong balance sheet allows us the flexibility to be opportunistic in the market. Moving to CapEx. CapEx in the first half of 2022 was $494.9 million. While the timing of CapEx outflows can shift quarter to quarter, we continue to expect capital expenditures for the year of approximately $2 billion. This funds facilities as well as machinery and equipment in Arizona, retail and service center development, early investment in our presence in Saudi Arabia, and other CapEx associated with vehicle and component development. In terms of our product roadmap guidance, we're on track for deliveries of additional versions of the Lucid Air later this year, including the Air Grand Touring Performance, the Air Pure, the Touring, and for production of Project Gravity SUV in the first half of 2024. In closing, despite our immediate challenges, I'm proud of what our team has been able to accomplish collectively with our business partners. We've enabled financings, we've continued important infrastructure build-out, and launched award-winning products. We welcome the new leadership team members and look forward to the capabilities that they bring as we work together to resolve issues and capture the tremendous opportunities ahead of us. Following Peter's closing remarks, we'll begin the Q&A portion of today's call. Today's Q&A will feature questions from some of our retail investors, an important constituency of our shareholder base, through the Say Technologies platform. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Peter for closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. I want to close by thanking all our employees for their dedication and hard work, our customers and investors who've put their trust in us, and our suppliers and partners who are tirelessly helping us on our journey. I'm more convinced than ever that this is a technology race and that we are well positioned with our in-house developed advanced technology. But I want to be clear that right now, my relentless focus is with this great team right here in Arizona, in helping resolving our logistics challenges and in ramping up production. I remain confident that we shall overcome these near-term challenges with a relentless tenacity and a steely determination, and in so doing put in place appropriate processes and methodologies that will serve us well for the future. And make no mistake, that future is hugely exciting, because right now, more than ever, the world needs the new Lucid products and technology advancements that we have yet to bring to market. And with that, let me turn it back to Maynard to get to your questions.
Thank you, Peter. We'll now start the Q&A portion of the call. Before we take questions from those on the phone, we want to pose some questions from our retail investors sent in through the Say Technology platforms. The first question, straight to it, we all want to know, is there a possibility for a partnership with Apple in the future? And we also have another related question regarding partners that we'll include, which is, since Hertz went with Tesla, would Lucid think about something like a partnership with car rental companies to get the brand out there?
No, thanks, Maynard. So we don't have anything to announce today regarding any new partnerships. That said, we recognize the attractiveness of our products and tech platform for other companies, and we're keenly open to discussing partnership options. With regard to fleets or rental cars specifically, our vehicles align very strongly with the operational and financial metrics that these operators care about. For instance, we are industry leading in efficiency, which is measured in miles per unit of energy and hence miles per dollar. Our charge time and range are also leading the market, which translates to higher vehicle uptime, which both customers and fleet operators desire. And we can also enable fleet operators to manage and run predictive analytics on the fleet and communicate with the fleet, given we've installed an OTA-enabled software platform on every car that we've sold.
Yeah, indeed, Sherry. Even from a vehicle architecture perspective, our Lucid Air Space concept provides additional room for luggage or cargo, or in the case of an autonomous vehicle, ride-sharing fleets, which are configured with the extra computer hardware and equipment. We have more room for that equipment and the batteries to power the equipment. So, I think for many of these characteristics and attributes would potentially make us a fantastic partner for one of these groups today. And frankly, even more, I guess, over time as we introduce more affordable models in the future, such as the Air Pure and other variants. What can I say? Look, we've got the perfect car and platform for such opportunities, I guess.
Great. We'll move to the next question. Any plans for an EV in the $40,000 to $50,000 range to compete with other EVs in that price range? And there's another question related, which is, will Lucid offer cheaper models for a broader market?
Oh, yeah, this is good. No, I think there's a popular, sort of widespread perception that Lucid only wants to be playing in the high-end luxury segment of the market, and that's simply not true. You know, in order to have a more meaningful impact on the climate, we just need to be in that higher volume segment of the market. That's how we're going to really make that impact. And one of the first steps, I see Pure as a stepping stone to a more affordable car, and that's why I'm so passionate about the Lucid Air Pure. And I mean, looking a little further ahead, we'll see our mid-size vehicle platform just mid-decade, which is going to be a further advance in our technology and efficiency story. And I just want to explain, we deliberately chose to start off at the high end because we were defining a brand, a super cool brand with you know, from its Californian DNA, and this is just the starting position. I mean, we start off by creating our tech flagships, such as Lucid Air and Gravity First, and we focused on the technical efficiency. We've set new benchmarks, and then we're going to make more affordable products. And that's what really excites me. Remember that we design, we develop, we manufacture all our powertrain in our factory in Arizona. And we think we can become even more efficient, and that's going to drive down cost of EV ownership and accelerate and catalyze widespread adoption, which is my passion.
And we'll move to the next question. Does Lucid plan to pay out dividends in the future?
We don't currently have plans to do so, but let me give you a little bit of perspective. We believe that our EV technology platform is amongst the best in-house developed technology available in the market today. And so our primary focus is to continue investing behind the strength and the growth of that platform so that we can fulfill our mission, which is to bring sustainable technologies to the world. Therefore, we don't anticipate paying a cash dividend in the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Sherry. And our next question from the same platform is Lucid currently working with Apple to implement the new CarPlay with iOS 16 that will be released in 2023 to utilize all Lucid cockpit displays?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a very specific question, I guess. Look, maybe allow me to explain this more broadly, perhaps. And of course, I can't speak for Apple's future product line here. But we're always evaluating new technologies as they come to market. And of course, we'll continue to do so. Look, we've got an awesome car from a hardware and mechanical perspective. And what I can talk about is some very exciting software updates coming throughout the year that will really sort of match the prowess from the hardware side. And we'll continue to provide new features via over-the-air software updates. And specifically with regards to CarPlay, we're actually in a beta testing phase of validation right now. And actually we plan to release the final version in the near future. So stay tuned and wait for that.
Great. Our next question, how is Lucid planning to combat inflation and a potential recession in the short term? How would this affect the Gravity SUV that's coming out in 2023 and potentially a $50,000 EV in 2025? And Sherry, maybe you can take the first part, and Peter, you can take the second.
Thanks, Maynard. Well, the entire industry has been experiencing an inflationary cost environment, and we're certainly not immune from that. I mean, with respect to the actions that we've specifically taken, in June we increased the prices of the Lucid Air, and that was the first time that we announced, prices back in September 2020. Though we're not going to see a material impact from that action until 2023, given that we honored the prior prices on the reservations made through May 31st and orders of the Grand Touring, which were confirmed in June. As I mentioned in the prepared remarks, we're still in the growth stages of our company and investing behind our strategic priorities. So large-scale blanket cost-cutting initiatives aren't necessarily appropriate in our case. You know, that said, I want to be clear that we're allocating capital in a very prudent and methodical manner. I mean, we're instilling a culture of cost consciousness. We're working side by side with our talented team members to identify and then execute on cost efficiency opportunities. You know, it often takes time to get processes to be best in class in efficiency. So there is definitely more work that we can do to rein in costs. You know, like others in the industry, we're running various downside scenarios and we'll act accordingly based on market conditions.
Yeah, and I think the second part of the question was, is everything on track for Gravity release? Yeah, as we stated, our Project Gravity SUV is on track for start of production in the first half of 2024. And actually, we're currently in the process of releasing the engineering data for our prototype builds, and I'm hugely excited about that, and I've been closely interacting with that whole process. And we also happen to mention that our mid-size platform, of course, is on track for just past mid-decade as well. Now, of course, it's important to recognize that to sync with the start of production of Gravity, of course, but at the same time we're readying our factory through the phase 2 here of AMP1 right here in Arizona. In particularly, we're expanding the north end of the body shop ready for Project Gravity, and the south side of the building, the new assembly halls where we'll run both Air and Gravity down that line. Now, we have customers asking us all the time for an SUV, and our hope is that Gravity can do for the SUV market just what Air did for the luxury sedan market. And we're going to take the same space concept, the range, the efficiency, the technology and design and performance, and apply all that great stuff to an SUV. And I think probably doesn't surprise a lot of people. I'm not a great SUV fan, but this finally is the SUV for me. It's actually going to happen. I've finally met the SUV I love, and that's Project Gravity.
Great, thank you. So now we'd like to take a few questions from the phone lines. Tawanda, can we take the first question?
Thank you. As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, you will need to press star 11 on your telephone. One moment for our first question. Our first question comes from the line of John Murphy with Bank of America. Your line is open.
Good afternoon and good evening, guys. I just have three quick ones. First, Peter, you mentioned that there were finished vehicles that were held at the factory and not, factory gated and ordered as finished. I'm just curious, how many those were and how many of those are close to being finished. Second, as we think about the logistics center being brought on site in Casa Grande, what the incremental cost for that would be, and does that have any impact on capacity? And then the third question, Sherry, what is the ABL borrowing base that's backstopping the new $1 billion loan or ABL facility? And you mentioned that might be upside. So, what other assets could be pledged for that ABL?
Thank you, John. Peter here. The first question was the cars that we held back through Q2 at the factory. We did that to really ensure that the quality was just perfect. And, it was just fit and finish adjustment on what we call flush and gap, the hood to the fenders, the finer points, the finessing that you would expect, features and the quality commensurate with a luxury automobile. And although many of those cars were meeting some of the standards of my quality team, I took the decision that I really want to up the game here and get things right. Now we're actually releasing a lot of those cars. We're direct feeding them to our service centers right now, and they'll find themselves their way through customers, having had that attendant love and attention and care. And I think they'll be delighted with our best efforts to make them as perfect as they can be. You also asked about the logistics center at Casa Grande. Now this was this was pre-planned. Part of the massive 2.85 million square foot expansion does include several hundred square feet, 100,000 square feet of a logistics space. What we're doing is just accelerating that at a very modest outlay, just getting that a little bit quicker because the closer we can bring the buffer stock and the materials to the line, that is key to creating a more efficient flow of material within our own house. So this is nothing new, it's just an acceleration of what we've already planned.
That's right. So no real incremental cost to speak of with respect to that LOC. You asked about the ABL. I mean, we are just delighted to put that in place with this world-class group of banks and, in our syndicate. The borrowing base, the initial committed part of it is $1 billion. Okay, and then we can borrow up to about $250 million right now based on eligible assets. That we will grow into more over time as inventory goes up, as other of our assets go up. And so that is something that is going to be available to us on a growing basis just as we move forward and mature as a company. The neat feature about this ABL is it also has an accordion feature. So although the second part of it, the accordion part, is not committed yet, it is up to an additional $500 million that's going to be available for that.
Thank you. Please stand by for our next question. Our next question comes from the line of 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧 with Citi. Your line is open.
Great, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Three quick ones from me. First, it sounds like on logistics issues, you've identified the problems and the team is in place. Hoping just you can elaborate more on the level of confidence in the second half of the year. Maybe talk about where you expect production split between Q3 and Q4 and degree of confidence you have into growing that for next year. And just secondly, I was hoping you'd also comment on the rate of reservations that you saw after the June price hike. Just curious on what you saw for demand there. And lastly, Sherry, maybe you could comment on the minimum cash balance you'd like to have as you kind of plan out liquidity into 2023.
Hi, Ate, Peter here. I think it's a really excellent question. We've based our guidance based upon a mindset which is neither super unduly optimistic nor unduly pessimistic, a very balanced approach, and we've taken a very comprehensive and very thorough analytical approach to the risks and opportunities that we see and which confront us. This is an imperfect science, an imprecise area, but the entire executive analyzed this very thoroughly, and we have a very high degree of concurrence in our collective thinking, which has led to this revised guidance.
So let me talk to the reservations question. So as you can expect, when we announced in May at our May earnings release that we were going to keep the prices, the old prices, in effect through the end of May and not have them go into effect until June 1st, that did bring forward some reservations. So we had a very large spike that happened in May. You see that as we went from 30,000 to 37,000. That's the largest growth that we've ever had in a 3-month period before. So that did happen as expected. I'd say that the pull-aheads had a little bit more pure in it than others, which you also would find as being intuitive, that the lower price points might be a little bit more price sensitive, so looking to lock in that rate. Now, what was really interesting is as we moved ahead the next couple of quarters and we looked at the reservations that have come in June and July, if we take that June and July base that we've had, and then we add to it the increase, the over-normalized increase that we got in May, we are still way ahead of where we would typically be if we were just normalized through June and July. So that pull ahead we're seeing, really might have been a bit of a bump up, just kind of like a marketing event almost, if you will. The other thing that was interesting is we looked at the June and July, reservations that are coming in, is that they continue to be allocated across the same mix allocations that we saw pre-price hike. So you're still seeing pure highest followed by Grand Touring and then Touring. So Grand Touring continues to be above Touring as well. So we're seeing what I would say is very encouraging response and reservations following similar patterns. And when you take the bump in May with the reduction we've seen in June and July, we're sitting in a really great place.
Thank you.
And then third, I think you had a question about, minimum cash balance. So, that one's interesting. There's a lot of different ways to model this because the way we are looking at the $4.6 billion, and when I talk about being well into 2023, I'm talking about going in accordance to our full plan, which is investing in Saudi Arabia, investing in all of our vehicle variants, investing, at this swift pace that we have chosen to do. We have some options there, right? So when you think about the minimum balance, you could stretch that out if you want. So, I'm not really going to provide any guidance, with respect to how much cash we want in the bank, but I just want you to know that you're going to continue to see from us the same type of proactive, kind of opportunistic behavior that you've seen all along. Every quarter we're coming to you and we're telling you about something interesting that we've done in the capital markets. We did the convertible bond offering. Now we've done the ABL. We put in place the $3.4 billion in Saudi Arabia. So I think you're going to continue to see that kind of action, taking place, from us, monitoring the markets and making sure that we're doing what is prudent on behalf of all investors.
We'll take the next question, please.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧 with Redburn. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks for taking my questions. I've also got three, please. So firstly, again, sorry, on the production, I'm wondering, can you help reassure us a little bit on the ramp up by giving us an idea of what your weekly production rate exited Q2 at and what it is today? My second question, on order intake, Sherry, you just mentioned there that, if you smooth out the last 3 months, it was actually ahead of what you expected. But if I look at it, I think I'm right in saying that you've averaged about 70 or 78 orders a day in the last period since you updated us. And in the 3-month period before that, which was March to May, it was basically the same as that. So I'm wondering, is the sort of explanation that there were cancellations and so the gross order intake was significantly above, or maybe the expectation is that the order intake would slow? And thirdly, Sherry, I think there was $1.4 billion of purchase of securities in Q2. Can you just tell us what that is and whether or not we should treat it as being as liquid as cash when it comes to your funding requirements? Thank you.
Hi, Charles. Peter here. I'm really loath to provide guidance on weekly production rates, and this is because it can be so misleading. There's a whole host of factors. If we can delay production a little bit to put in improvements to our line side supply, which, for example, can improve rate in the future. And once we start cherry picking specific weekly production rates, I think we get into dangerous territory. I think that the numbers we provide you give the most broad and honest description of our ability to have produced cars through this relevant quarter, and our guidance of between 6,000 and 7,000 cars for the year, I believe, is a very balanced and a realistic guide for the future. So I'm sorry, I'm not. I don't think it's wise for me to give you a weekly production rate right now.
Yeah, let me cover off a couple of your questions as well. So you were asking about the short-term and long-term investments. So you're right. We took some of our cash and we parked it in short-term and long-term investments in separately managed funds. And we did this because we didn't need access to all the cash right now, and we wanted to be able to get a little bit higher return on our money. Those dollars are accessible to us at any time. though we don't intend to use them right away, and we plan to let them mature and garner the interest rates, which was the purpose why we put them there. But they are absolutely accessible to us. I don't want people to get confused when they see the cash balance, the cash line on the balance sheet going down quarter over quarter. Some of that was moved into short-term and long-term investments, so our assets are still there. It wasn't that we spent all that, and I definitely don't want there to be confusion on that point. Secondarily, you asked a bit about just the reservations. So when we looked at that normalized curve I was talking about, we did exactly what you said. I looked back 3 months, and I looked back 6 months and 9 months, and I kind of looked at what does that normalization look like, and we are definitely well above that. When you look at May, June, and July, kind of taken together. Cancellations came down slightly, so we've actually seen some improvement there as well. But what you are going to see as we go forward is that the deliveries are going to be increasing substantially. So I don't know you're going to continue to see that kind of growth because you're going to have a lot of deliveries coming out of that number. Now, we will be opening up the Gravity order book at some point. Then we expect we're going to get another large spike again, right? So there's going to be some dynamic nature to these reservation numbers going forward, and we'll be sure to be, as transparent as we can about that in future earnings calls.
Great, thanks. And we'll close out with the last question from the Say platform, which is, what is the plan for growth? How do you plan to take more market share in the EV market?
Well, first of all, I have to say this. I think there is no such thing as a market for EVs. There's a market for cars. So we're not competing for this sort of artificial construct of EV market share. I think that's a fantasy. We're competing for the rest of the marketplace, which is huge, the white space, which is currently occupied by outdated gasoline cars. And that's what we're competing with, get the penetration into that market. But I would also say that this is a technology race, and we're in it. And this has yet to play out, because not all EVs are created equal. And I'd also like to add, with Lucid Air, we're addressing specific issues that have been sort of resistance points, I guess, to customer adoption of EVs in the past. We got the longest range, we got the fastest time to charge, we've got incredible space in superior design. It's really leveraging so much more than just an EV. It's leveraging all those advantages that electrification can provide. And I think we can sell more cars because we address these key resistance points. But furthermore, I guess there's a bigger issue at stake here. And I'm glad you asked the question, because it allows me to address this. The world's precious battery materials are really scarce, and our technology allows us to make more cars with less batteries. And this is a point that's really missed, because we can make more cars with less resources, because we can go further for a given amount of energy, because we've got more efficiency. For example, we believe we could endow a Lucid Air Pure with over 400 miles range with a battery pack size of less than 90 kilowatt hours. That's what's going to make Lucid Air Pure really awesome. Similar range, but fewer batteries than compared with EVs for others. And that is the future. That is the consequence of being in the tech race.
Great, thank you. And I think that's a great way to end. This concludes Lucid's first quarter 2022 earnings conference call. Thank you all for joining us today, and you may now disconnect.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. First off, I would like to say that I'm shocked. Okay, so this is the third earnings. I think they definitely need to spend. They're spending enough money. Whether they spent $2.9 million in personnel. Was that 2. Yeah, they spent a lot of money basically on personnel in Q2. They need to hire a PR. I personally find it a little bit dry. My own 2 cents. I don't know. What's your take on that, Landon? Oh, you're on mute. But
Yes, can you repeat the question?
What's your take on that? Do you think was that entertaining enough for you?
The earnings call, it wasn't like entertaining enough, but there definitely was a lot there to break down. I like how they touched on the racing program, the Formula E. I think that that's a great tribute to what everyone calls Lucid as the Ferrari of EVs. I think that that's great. I think that they kind of did a good job of dodging a couple of questions, but for the most part, I think they answered what they needed to, and they gave us the answers that we need to sustain ourselves into the future.
Yeah, that's a good way of seeing it. You noticed during this, like for those of you that are looking at the intraday chart after hours, as soon as they kind of denounced the Apple partnership, it went down from 18.15 to around 18. So clearly that was one thing people were riding on. Some takeaways that I noticed is that they went up more debt. They only have now 4.6. So I'll pull this up for you guys. So this was based on their previous earnings. So they had 5.39 billion in cash equivalent short-term investments. Now they have 4.6. But one thing that one of many questions I was asked was they're accounting 4.6 billion in cash equivalent short-term investments, but in reality 1.4 billion of that should be moved to long-term. So they don't really have access to all of that. So they only in reality have 3.2 million in cash. One interesting thing that I found that I never knew is that 1 billion in as far as a revolving line of credit they had, that's not actually true. They don't actually fully have access to that 1 billion. They only have 250 million that they have access to. It's all dependent on assets that they have, and right now they don't have the assets to get that 1 billion. So I know some of you guys had questions about liquidity and possible dilution, so that might be something just to factor in. So outside of that, though, what's some takeaways that you got?
I think that they did a really good job of kind of like re-emphasizing on what makes Lucid Air so good, and emphasizing on the technology that we have and the advantage that we have on the technology. I'm glad that they're sticking to Formula E. I think that that's a great way to get attention and to improve the technology. Because as we know with other car manufacturers, the more they get into racing, the more their technology improves. And I think that that's a good, strong point. I also like the fact that they did reinstate that the Gravity is going to be coming out in 2024. And I found it interesting how they didn't know when they were going to open up the orders for the Gravity, but they said that it was going to be sometime soonish, that it could be anytime in the near future. I think that that's really good, and I think that that kind of went under the radar for most analysts and other people who are investing in Lucid, because I think that's a huge thing, is whenever those reservations open up, that we will see a massive increase in the reservation numbers. And not only from like people, but from corporations and stuff. I think that they will want the Gravity electric vehicle.
Yeah. No, I think the Formula E might be good, but I just really hope they don't allocate a lot more resources to that, because they only made 1.2 million off of that, which is pennies in comparison to what they can do. And I guess turns out, even though they were still saying that they had supply chain issues, Lucid was its own worst enemy at the end of the day. So what were they saying? That they part of the assembly line just wasn't working as efficiently as they were assuming. So that's always something fun we love to hear as investors. That and I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit more, I don't know, I didn't really, the last couple of earnings, actually none of Lucid earnings, I feel very accomplished at the end. Like, for those of you that tune in, I did SoFi's earnings yesterday. You kind of leave the earnings with like a good sense of accomplishment. With Lucid's, kind of left trying to find something positive to say. Like, it's not like, hey man, I'm so happy about my investment, like I'm gonna be like, it's gonna be amazing, but it's like now we're thinking it's like, oh shit, how red will it be tomorrow? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I can see that sentiment, but I feel like that there's the other side of that too, where you look at it and you're like, okay, like they're having these struggles early on, but when does this end? When do we get that massive efficiency bump? When do we get the percentage changes that are moving in the right direction? When do we get the ramp up? When do more cars and stuff, like when do things get accomplished? And I think that that's the other thing too, is you can only go so far down before you go back up. And I think that that's one of the things that we as investors need to look forward to is, this could be a bottom in sight, and there could be a massive increase on the other side of this.
Yeah, no, I think that's why we all stick around, because we know it has a very good product. That's pretty much the only thing doesn't matter the question. He could have asked about the weather and he'd divert it and talk about how good Lucid is. But so clearly we know we have a good product. And finally he actually said, like, you know what? We just need meaningful production. He actually just outright said, you know what, it comes down to we just need meaningful production, and it's very true. And I don't know, I think they definitely need to jump all over that.
Yes, I agree.
This is my notes. My chicken scratch. It makes no sense. I just random numbers sometimes. Yeah, I feel like they could have started. To be honest, they already did PR about the 2 VPs that they appointed 2 weeks ago. I feel like they didn't have to talk on that. Like this is an earnings call. It's not really like a headhunting kind of thing. It's like you already did your part on that. But I feel like they could have just sparked a little bit more excitement. I think that's one thing that's really just missing. Because it doesn't matter. Like you can still twist and kind of say bad news in a more positive tone. I think that's my 2 cents. Hopefully tomorrow things, I don't know, I think a lot of you in the chat as well is kind of saying the same thing. Hopefully this might be the sign of a bottom. They've said many times that they're ramping up 6,000 to 7,000. Like in 2021, they were basically doing, I think it was about 24, 25 vehicles a day. That's what it worked out to be. For us to hit the 6,000 mark by the end of the year, we have to do 30 vehicles. So we basically are back in 2021. Very beginner steps. If for some reason we missed that, then we deserve it, I guess. I don't know. But I think we've lowered the bar so low that it's near impossible for... And actually, you know what would be just for shits and giggles a little bit? I would love Adam Jonas, one of these earnings, to jump on board. Like, I'm surprised he hasn't come on, said some sarcastic ass comment. I don't know.
I think that would make it a lot more entertaining if he were to come on and make a comment.
But I think in general as well, a lot of people, even Mr. C was saying the same thing. It's like, what's up with Peter? Like, did he just have enough and he went to the break room? I don't know. I feel like it's you are trying to put out this high quality vehicle. It's like, well, you should have your shareholder meeting, your earnings calls, and all those as equally as high. Just that's how I see things typically. But I don't know. I think it is what it is. So I asked you before the call. Now, knowing the call and all this information, some positives, some negatives, would you buy tomorrow?
I probably would have to say that I'd have to watch what tomorrow brings to the market, but I think that we're actually in a really good position to buy right now. I think that the price looks pretty good right now at 1801 in the after hours trading. I think that we've kind of positioned ourselves. The only thing I'd wait for is probably next quarter earnings, maybe wait till the start of 2023. But I feel like that as soon as we get that news that the Gravity reservations are available to be ordered, I think that could maybe take us out of these teens.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that will, because I think the pure dependence on that is so huge. I think the Gravity is going to be their massive money-making product that they have outside of the lower price vehicle, which out of anything, I think this is the first time they ever admitted that a lower price vehicle is a little bit more advantageous. They didn't directly say it. They just said based on that, they're seeing a lot more reservations still for the Pure than Grand Touring and then the Touring. So clearly Pure, it's is based on price. It's not anything extra special about the Pure other than the price aspect. So clearly people want a lower price vehicle. So if I was them, I would probably try to prioritize that aspect sooner than mid-decade to set yourself apart. But again, that's how I see things.
Yeah, I can see that. Hey, I didn't catch it all, but they talked some about, I think it was the gravity powertrain, how they were making improvements where it was going to have 469 or 96 horsepower, and it was going to have about the same range, but way less than the Lucid Air powertrain. Did you catch all that?
It sounds familiar, but I feel like you've already elaborated more on that than what they said. So I could be wrong. I didn't catch that, though.
Okay. All right.
Anyone in the chat kind of get that? But you know what? I think at the end, we all knew the kind of investment that we're getting into. It's the first year production, as what you said. And I think it coming out of the gate being compared with Tesla from the get-go, more so probably from a technology standpoint, people just assumed that production was going to come first nature. And I think it's hard. And I think everyone's always said that, right? People have always said the prototypes are the easy part. Production is hard. So, you know what? I've said from the get-go, production are one of the biggest negatives of that. And you know what? It still kind of holds true. So it's not that bad, right? At least we have a company that has a good technology. Imagine being a company that can't produce anything and actually has horrible technology. So there's ways positive with things, I think. And the fact that on a technical stance that we're holding 18, not bad. Still in the high teens is still very advantageous.
Yeah, hey, I just want to point out that John in chat earlier said that it took Tesla 9 years. So if you think about that, I mean, you just add 8 years from now onto Lucid and think of where we will be and how much we can achieve in that time. Plus, also, I know that Lucid also said that their ESS is going to be making equally, if not more, revenue and money than their car sales in the year of 2026 and beyond. So that's also something to look forward to, because that's only 4 years away. And if we have 8 to technically catch up to Tesla, then where are we going to be? That's the big question right there, is what's it going to look like in 2028, 2030, for Lucid and Tesla.
Very well said. With all that, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Also, it is in the description, so pop over. There's a really cool Discord for Lucid content. Usually I go there, has a lot of amazing info. As you can see, Lando is technically an admin there as well. So pop over there and make the community bigger, because we all know we have a good product. So make sure you guys just take a stop over and do that as well. Lando, any final parting comments?
Kind of to wrap it up, I guess. Just keep holding on, dollar cost average, buy more, use Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks and stuff. Just keep adding more shares, buying up at those low prices. Because in the future, even if we do stock splits and stuff, you're still going to have a lot of money in Lucid once we actually get ramped up, once production gets in line and stuff. And it's only a matter of time before that happens, because we have every piece of the puzzle in place. We just have time, and that's all we need, is everything to catch up, and time and efficiency. And once all that starts running together, Lucid's going to be unstoppable. It's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and everyone here knows it, and everyone here is excited for it. And so we just got to be patient and let it do its thing.
Yeah, well said. That's a good thing, good way to call it. Let us do its thing. But with all that, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. Thanks for joining us for the Q2 earnings. A lot of good things, personally, depending on how you see things. And if you have a long-term time horizon, 2025, they definitely did say a lot of good points for that time frame. So take it how you see that. But with all that, you guys have a great, amazing night. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.